Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Yes, my name's Shannon Curtis, and currently I am calling from Columbus, Texas, which is about an hour and a half outside of Houston.
Okay. And can you tell me what is the temperature out there, by the way?
Oh
It's
man,
not
this morning, rainy and hot. It's been in the triple digits for a while, so looking forward to kind of cooler air. But yeah, summers around here are pretty toasty.
okay. And can you tell me about your past leading up into your present?
Yeah, so thank you. First, I wanted to say thank you so much for having me on here and giving me a chance to share my story and bring a little light to the world with what I went through. So I like to talk about my past, where it led up to where I am today, of being like a founder of Angel Goddess Healing, what really inspired me. And so my past really has to deal with a lot of trauma, emotional, physical, sexual trauma, and me finding my way through that and how to navigate that. And so I pretty much had a regular childhood growing up. I wouldn't say it was anything out of the normal, but I definitely had moments of building up to where I started. About 24 is when I got married, and I knew I wanted to have kids, and I got pregnant right away, and unfortunately had a miscarriage. And I kept having them and ended up having 5 total and having to do infertility stuff. And it was just a very painful time in my life, but I was learning how to walk through that trauma, and I didn't quite understand how to and to sit in it. So I just kept on pushing. And once I had my beautiful daughter after a C-section, immediately, you have C-section, they give you pain medicine. And in that instant, I felt a relief that I had been searching for a while. And so when I went back home and continued the pain medicine they gave me, I found that I actually got energized by it. And I was able to be a mom,
Yes.
do laundry. And so it was
Yes.
crazy that it wasn't to go out and party. It wasn't to go pass out. It was literally to function in my everyday life. But then before I knew it, my body became addicted to it, and absolutely mentally it was that release I was looking for. And so that led me about 7-8 years of dealing with that every day of taking pain medicine. Just to, at the end, it started with not even wanting to go into the withdrawals. And so there was so many times I wanted to be done, but it was the shame and not telling anyone. And it was all hidden in this dark little secret I had. And so finally it came to light about 8 years ago and was asked, do I want to get help? And I said, absolutely. And so the next day I was on the plane to Wickenburg, Arizona, and I went to the Meadows. And it's a beautiful trauma treatment that I went to for 6 weeks. And I remember going there that night, and I was so excited because I knew like I finally got the help I needed. And so
How
that's
do you know that you were addicted? What was the day you said to yourself, I'm addicted to pain pills?
I think I started noticing the feeling. And then what happened for me is you think about it, and then I wasn't using it for pain. That's probably the biggest thing was I truly in pain physically, or was I emotionally in pain? And that's what I help a lot of clients with, because sometimes emotionally we are, but we use something to kind of help. And so it's that navigation of where is really the source of the pain. But I just noticed I was wanting it, and I was thinking about it. As soon as I would wake up, I would time it to where I'd take my pill, wait 30 minutes till it kicks in, and then start my day. And so that's really where I noticed my brain was starting to want it. And it was like a best friend that you really didn't want, or a boy you didn't want to break up with, that you knew was
Yeah.
unhealthy for you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you can continue with your story.
Oh yeah, and so that's kind of what led me to at the Meadows, the treatment center, and it was just wonderful. But it was the first time I was able to sit in my pain of having miscarriages and losing that, and going to the doctor for your ultrasound for your heartbeat. And they're like, there's no heartbeat, and how devastating that was. Or right before I got married, I literally had to have emergency D&C because I was miscarrying and bleeding, and they needed me to come in. So I came in the morning, and that night I had my rehearsal dinner. And so again, there's this thing of almost outrunning the pain, of keep on going and going, and you just push through. So I finally found a place that I could rest in my pain and my heartache. And so I really understood it. But the big piece that comes into my story is when I was 4 years old, I always had a memory of a gentleman that was kind of a family friend acquaintance, and my mom and dad were both working, and I stayed with the housekeeper, and he came by the house to see if he could take me to lunch. And the housekeeper tried to call my mom, and fate have it, she didn't answer, so she went ahead and let me go with this person. I don't have a whole lot of memories from it up until in my 40s, but I did remember being taken and probably that feeling of being scared. There's someone that's not my dad. And so I came home that day and I had a balloon because he took me to McDonald's, and this was in the 80s, and you had a little balloon. And so my mom was like, "Where did you get that balloon?" And I told her. And her face immediately changed, and I felt like I was in trouble. And so that 4-year-old self immediately, when she was like, "What happened? Anything happened?" And I always said no. Always, all my life, I always told my parents no. And so there was nothing they could really do. But into my 40s, I went through a divorce, and I was really trying to find myself and understand my pain. And so I took a beautiful journey with Ambio Life Sciences in Mexico, and they do plant medicine, big retreats, and started with vets and people for pain medicine and getting them off of that. And so I did a 5-day retreat, and the medicine showed me when I was in it, it's very dreamlike state, and it kind of shows you your memories. I saw what happened, and I was.
Was it DMT?
No, it's ibogaine. It's iboga. It's a plant from West Africa. And so, yeah, the DMT you're talking about is more aligned with ayahuasca, has the DMT in it. This is ibogaine. It's from the root iboga, and they're doing a lot of studies right now to help with trauma, vets, PTSD, brain stuff, MS. There's a lot of big movement coming with that. And so I went and I found that that medicine is what truly healed me, because I was able to remember, but I remembered in the space that God was with me. And like I said, it's very dreamlike. And I had this energetic God next to me, and he was asked me, "Do you want to know what happened?" And it was pretty early on, because you're in it at about 12, sometimes 24 hours of being in this dreamlike state. And I said, absolutely. And as soon as I saw what happened, and I was looking in the car as I was looking and viewing, and I saw my little self on the left as a passenger, and I saw him on the right. And so I saw, and I instantly just, my soul got crushed, that feeling of, oh my gosh, that poor little girl. But then I also had a relief. Like, I know now, I finally know. I've always been fighting this thing, and intimacy and miscarriages and surgeries and early menopause and all the hysterectomy when I was 30, all these things that happen can go all the way back to that trauma. And so in that moment, I looked down and I had this real angry red knot down in my stomach area. And I looked down and I'm like, God, that is bad. I said, I have to give that back to him. That's not my anger. And so I gave that person their shame back. But as I'm standing here and God's right next to me, I'm seeing this person as God sees him. And all of a sudden I'm like, I have to forgive him. He's of the same light of me in this place where God's seeing him. And so in that moment, I forgave him. And it was the most magical, beautiful experience I can ever have. And I knew instantly it was done for me, not to me, because I got to experience the forgiveness and the beauty of that. And so what I learned in that plant medicine journey was that that's what the point is. You have to have someone do something to you so you can have forgiveness. You can't give forgiveness if someone doesn't do something. And so it's this like little dance we do, and we have these soul contracts, and I never really understood, but I knew what happened. And then in the moment, I went from knowing to understanding, and it really just opened up my spiritual gifts and my mediumship, and everything that I do now all shifted from that beautiful moment I had almost a year and a half ago.
Wow, that is very strong and bold. Like, you've been through a lot. You've been through a lot. Tell me, how did you face mental health?
So I tried it traditionally. When I got back from my treatment center, I immediately was on an antidepressant and I think something else. And I remember Wellbutrin, and I remember the shame of going to the psychologist and feeling it and getting in the car and crying to my ex at the time, being like, I felt so shameful. But what it was I was finally sober the first time in my life. I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. And so I was stuck, kind of left with my daily chores without that tool. And so I just really struggled. I did do AA and I went every single day for 90 days in a row. And I truly believe that changed my thinking, because there were some days I literally, all I would do is to get to a meeting. That's it. So when my mental health was kind of having a hard time, I at least had a place to go. But what I found is, when you get outside of yourself and hear other people's stories and you start hearing solutions, that really can change your mental health. And so about 8 years, I was on the antidepressant, but I still struggled. And so what I found is, through my journey, after I did the plant medicine, I don't use anything anymore. And my mental health is great, because now I understood my depression and my anxiety. And that's what I help clients with mental health, is there's always something stemming from it. And so it just feels like, if you're curious enough to understand why you're feeling that way, there's a way through it if you understand.
And how did you overcome 5 miscarriages?
It was pretty hard. Like I said, it was very much the first time in your face. Had no idea. I didn't even know it could happen that way. My body didn't know. I had no signs, no signs. Just thought I was going for that first heartbeat. And it was so shattering. And I remember having to come back 2 days later to see if there was a heartbeat. And I'm sitting in the room with all these pregnant women. And it was just the hardest thing. And my sister, who's about 18 months older than me, she was pregnant. So we were already planning like our double baby shower, and our kids were going to be so close. And it just felt like it got ripped from me. And so I really struggled with being a woman, of feeling like that was my job, is to be able to carry. And I felt like my body betrayed me. And so the biggest thing is coming back to why now I understand it. My body was trying to tell me something's not right, something's not right. And so how I got through it was just pushing through. I did see a grief counselor, and that helped some. But I think for me, I kept just pushing through. And I wish I would have had someone like a coach like me now, that would help really sit in it and understand it, and maybe slow down, because I felt like having a baby was the answer. And it was, in a way, but the real source of it was understanding the pain and why it kept happening in my life. And so it taught me to kind of walk through and understand why it happened the way it did.
Tell me about how you overcame divorce.
Yeah, so I was 40, and I knew in my gut and my soul something was like coming up. I just knew, and I would tell people I feel this big thing. And I always say there's the people that see those sunsets and they're watching the sun, and maybe they're curious where the sun goes. I'm one of those people. I need to know. And so I remember telling my ex, I'm like, I just feel like there's something out there. And I was just a stay-at-home mom, and I loved my life and my daughter, and helped raise a beautiful home, everything you could ask for. And there was something inside of me that just wasn't happy. And I see this a lot with women, as finding that passion. And I didn't have a passion in my life outside of being a mom or a wife. And so when I kind of started discovering who I was, my biggest fear was telling him, this is not really the path that I want to go on. But I worked really hard at always bringing it back to love. And we honored those 15 years. And so the day I filed, I invited him over, and he came and sat by the pool, and we watched the sunset, and we both cried, and we honored those 15 years. Because just because we were moving in different directions, it doesn't mean those other 15 years didn't teach me many things. And so I wanted to honor that. And then moving forward, that my life just completely shifted, and I felt like a weight lifted. I felt like a bird out of a cage that I finally got to fly. And I truly know that that's how I am, where I am today, is because I allowed myself to find my own path in the way that I wanted to.
How do you define love, seeing that you were had sexual trauma and a lot of other things has happened, divorce and a lot miscarriages? How do you define love in your definition?
Love for me is, it starts with self-love. I'm very spiritual. I work a lot with God, source, angels, whatever you want to call it. I just truly believe that at the end of the day, the essence of who we are is love. And so for me, if I can just bring that back, and I've learned to find that pathway through peace and self-love and meditation. And so I find that at the end of the day, when I get out of my head, my ego is go to my heart it always comes back to love. Anything someone does to me, anything bad in my life, there's always a reason why. And so if you're curious to understand the reason, then you can go to knowing something to understanding it. And that's why I truly believe everything has happened for me and not to me. And so then I don't become the victim, because I'm like, thank you for showing me who I don't want to be, or thank you for showing me the healed parts of me or the things I still need to work on. And so I just always bring it back to self-love. And once I love myself, then I can love anybody else. But it truly starts with me.
Well said. And tell me about Angel Goddess Healing.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like my little baby. I love the name Angel Goddess because that's what I feel like is part is the angel, but then the goddess is that sexuality, that strong feminine, that I can be a powerful woman, but also be sweet and kind. And so I've really learned to encompass all of that, both of it. And so I'm a intuitive coach. I say intuitive coach because I get a lot of messages from the other side, but I use it in my coaching practice. And so it's more to help people really with how they navigate their life, but taking maybe some messages from the other side or a loved one or angels or your spirit guides, and really helping how to apply it to your life. Because that's what I find is most people are struggling with the everyday aspect. And so I do that, and I speak. And then also I'm an author, and I just wrote my first children's book. It's called No More Monsters Under the Bed, Shining Your Light on the Dark. And it's actually all about a little girl who walks the navigation of how to face that monster under bed, that fear, with the help of a guardian angel and a bunch of special spirit animals. And so it teaches her how to find her light. And that's really been a passion of mine, is to help my clients meet them where they're at, wherever that they're at, and just help them reach their full potential, and to help them find the passion that maybe they're lacking. And so that's kind of, and then I do 3-day healing retreats for the people that really want to come in and sit in the pain, sit in all the stuff, and can help them move through it.
How do you define spirituality in your definition? And what do you do spiritual? Do you mess with crystals? Do you use crystals? The only thing I heard you say you do was meditate. Do you do anything extensive other than meditation?
Yes, sometimes I'll do cards. I do my little angel cards, tools. I have crystals and stuff, but it's not something I always try to do, never get stuck on something, because all these things are my permission slip to feel closer to spirit. And so when you ask me to find spirit, it's like feeling outside of myself, feeling the unknown, feeling something greater than myself, that love. And it's not in my heart, it's outside of me. It radiates outside of me. And so for me, that's where I feel getting in touch. Like inspired is in spirit. And so that's where I find my inspiration, is when I'm outside of Shannon, outside of my ego, and I'm in my heart. And that's where it all lives, the magic. So you can use any tools. And I always tell people, whatever helps you, whatever helps you. Some people love yoga, meditation, breath work. There's so many different ways. It's just wherever you feel the most peace. And so at the end of the day, my partner and I, we both meditate, we'll put on music, and then we talk about it after. And every song will say what came up for me. And I'm like, yeah, this feeling came up today. And before you know it, first of all, you're having a deep, deep connection with your partner, but then I'm understanding what was going on. And I just had some tooth problems yesterday, and I literally meditated last night. I was like, what is this teaching me? And it literally felt like there was still some trauma in my stuff, going back to being that little girl and all the surgeries I had. And so being at the dentist and them doing all this stuff, after I left, I got in my car and almost started crying. My body remembered that stuff. And so I laughed. I said, I can't believe, like, just turning a toothache into something very profound. But it's because I was curious, and I really wanted to understand why all of a sudden am I having all these problems. And it just felt like because it was that lack of taking care of my teeth, of putting me first.
Well said. Do you believe that some music takes you away from spirituality, and what music is good that you use?
Okay, so yeah, so I kind of always try to tell everyone each his own, find their own path, because I'm living my life through my lens. And so I have different memories, I have different trauma. So maybe some song might bring up a past for me that I don't like, and it might be beautiful for you. So I always tell people, find what works for you. For me, I do like the angelic music. I do a lot of a Native American tribal, not a whole lot of words. Now, when I am sitting for a client, meaning if they're wanting messages from spirit or loved ones, I will put on songs that have music, because what happens, the words, they pop out to me. They're like someone writing on a chalkboard, and I'll just start writing and I hear these little pings of the words. And then before you know it, they tell a story. But usually when it's me, a lot of the times I just do no words, because it really starts to get me in. First, you start with your head, and then quiet the mind. And I always say, quiet the mind, open the heart. And then that's where I can really go in and let go and remove myself from my ego, and then just see what comes through. So music for me is the certain frequencies that feel good. That's all I can say, is if it feels good. Sometimes there's songs I'm like, put them on and like, it just doesn't feel right. That's, again, trusting your intuition and knowing when you quiet, you'll know what sits well with you.
Where do you see yourself going for the future?
Oh, the future. I always say I'm so excited to go somewhere that I have no idea where I'm going. And it's the best feeling in the world, meaning I have no idea what God's going to do with me. I have ideas, but I've learned that as long as I follow my highest passion and just keep going and going out in the world, it's kind of like the sky's the limit. That I would love to be doing. We have 40 acres of land up in Montana, and would love to be doing by the summer of next year retreats there. I do them now here in Texas, work a lot with vets. That's one of my passions, is helping vets overcome their trauma and their PTSD. And then also with my book, speaking and really shedding light on sexual trauma. I feel like it's not talked about enough in this country, and it feels like it's time for people to start talking about it and letting go of the shame. And I find that once you start letting go of that shame and giving it back to your perpetrator, you can start living a more authentic life.
Yeah, that negative transference energy.
Mhm.
Tell me about an excerpt from your book and why, like, what made you, like, you were sitting down or standing up and you said to yourself, let me write a book. What
Mhm.
was that aha moment, that moment?
That moment, and it's a pretty powerful one. But back to my journey in Mexico, I actually wrote in my journal, I'm going to be writing a book one day. And I didn't fully understand it, but now looking back in a year and a half, everything I wrote has like almost come true. It's kind of crazy. And so I was home about October of last year, and I was asleep, and my phone kept dropping on the phone in the middle of the night. And I was like, oh, on the phone, on the floor, trying to grab it in the dark. And all of a sudden it drops again. I'm like, what is spirit trying to tell me? What is the universe trying to tell me? And I look over, and there's my bed. And I think it was underneath the bed. And so I had to reach my hand underneath the bed. And it was this moment instantly, like, that's the book, no more monsters under the bed. And it was like shining your light on the dark. And so the next day, my daughter and I were flying out to Montana, and on the flight, I just wrote it all. It just flowed through me. And then I have 7 more coming out after this. It's a whole series, a set of it. And so they're already in my mind. I already know the stories. It's just sitting down and writing them. So I'm already on the second one and working with that, my illustrator. But you asked an excerpt up there. I feel like the one I love the most was, it's a little girl who's scared, and the angel comes to her, and she has a very special flashlight for her that she brings from heaven. And she's like, I'll go with you and look under the bed. And so they fly underneath there with that special flashlight. And then when they do, the darkness turns into this beautiful, magical sky. And there's a moon and all these stars. And the little girl Lucy's like, what is all this? And she's like, all those stars are the shattered pieces of your soul. And the sun and the moon is the sun. And I can help you gather all those pieces back up. And so they go and travel and get all those pieces of that lost innocence that was taken from her. And so she gives it back to her. And then the moon and everything turns into this beautiful sun. And she continues on the journey. But I always love that moment of realizing that the stars shine the brightest in the dark. And so sometimes, just because it's dark, it doesn't mean it has to be scary. You can find the beauty in the dark. And I've learned to find the beauty in the pain in my life.
Wow. Tell me about your journey as a speaker.
Mhm. Yeah, so I just really speak from the heart and trust. I really try to meditate, pray before my audience, and really, really try to communicate with whatever I'm supposed to tell. It's not really about me, because I feel like my life's great. I know how to walk through this in the healing journey. I really want to help other people. And so I just pray to God that whatever my story resonates with the right people. And so I really just try to almost, I say it's like tuning into a channel, like a radio channel. You have certain viewers that are tuning into this channel for that reason. Well, I try to tune myself into that. And then maybe I'm on another, speaking journey, and I'm talking to completely different people. They're going to need, hear something else. And so I've just learned with speaking, really trying to just not make it about me, just make it about whatever is the best for the people listening.
If you had to give a piece of advice to an entrepreneur that wants to be an author, be a coach, be a speaker, what would you give them? What kind of advice?
Yeah, I would say just trust the process. As simple as that sounds, we always get such in a hurry of write the book, right? And then you write it. And then it's a whole nother thing to get it like published. And then afterwards, how are you going to get it to sell? So what happens is you can get caught up in all of that. And you're like, I got to do the next, I got to do the next, or I got to get all these viewers and I got to get all these books sold. And you miss the point. You miss the magic. The magic in my book is how I wrote it and the healing that it helped me. And now I get to talk about the story about my little 4-year-old self who went through this, and her story matters. And so I would just tell people, just remember what you're doing it for. What you're doing it for, because if you lose that side of it, none of this is worth it. Because if I just kept doing it, making about everything else and the fame or how many I could sell or the money, I'm going to lose the aspect of the true healing and the gift that this book has. So I would just tell everyone to just enjoy the ride and entrust when a door shuts, it's because it's not supposed to open or it's not ready to open. And that's something that has really been, just like speaking or podcast, not everyone's going to want to hear your story, and just know that's okay.
When you heal, people, vets, I commend you on that. Thank you for helping with our vets, because I'm a vet.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me, what this is the question. What gets you out of bed every day? What
Mm-hmm.
gets Shannon out of bed every day? That's the last question.
Yeah, the excitement, the passion. I was just saying just a couple of weeks ago of I finally writing this book and stepping into like the surrendering of I'm an author, because I would have much rather stayed behind, the computer screen and just done what I'm doing, helping clients and just staying kind of quiet in my life. I'm a pretty quiet, peaceful person. And I knew this story had to get told. And so it really pushed me out of my comfort zone to do that. So every day I wake up of remembering why I'm doing this, but the excitement of what's today. Who am I going to talk to today? Who am I going to help? What am I going to remember about myself? What am I going to learn? And so I would just say, just being curious about life. It's not supposed to be this punishment earth that we just come here to work, to die. There's so much beauty in this world. And if you just stop to see it, and first stop to see it in yourself, find the beauty in yourself, I guarantee you're going to find the beauty all around you. So I just love, love, love to say, what am I going to find today that is going to help me continue my journey.
How can the people reach you, Shannon?
Yeah, they can reach me at my website, www.angelgoddesshealing.com. And that's where all my information is, my book, my website, email. They can get a hold of me. Anything that they have, questions, they can go on there. And I'm on social media, but again, that's all linked through my website.
Okay, stay on the line. Thank you, everybody, for joining my show today. And thank you for crossing over to Facebook. You all take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys another time. Thank you.
Never waste my time, you all I want.